You know, I've been studying Messianic prophecy for decades. As a Jewish believer in Jesus, I was challenged on the Messianic prophecies beginning at the age of 16. So this is something I've thought about, studied, and looked at. And many times we'll give statistical proofs. And we'll say, look, there are 300 Messianic prophecies. And it's impossible that Jesus could have fulfilled all of them unless he's really the Messiah. The problem we make when we give these statistical mathematical arguments is that we realize that not all the prophecies are direct prophecies. For example, Matthew 2, Matthew the second chapter, he quotes Hosea 11. So Joseph rises, takes Jesus and his mother by night, departs to Egypt, and he remains there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. You say, aha, you see, that's a direct prophecy that God would call his son Jesus out of Egypt. No, it's not a direct prophecy. When you go back to Hosea 11, you find it's talking about ancient Israel, God's son. And when Israel was a child, Israel, God's son, was a child, God called Israel out of Egypt, but then Israel continued to rebel, etc. You say, well, then why is Matthew quoting it? Is he misquoting it? No. He's saying, as it happened to Israel, so it happened to the Messiah. As it happened to Israel, called God's son, it happened to Messiah, called God's son. As it happened to Israel, God's son, in its infancy, called out of Egypt, so it happened to the Messiah, God's son, in his childhood, in his infancy, called out of Egypt. So in other words, there are many prophecies like this that are not direct prophecies for you to put out a mathematical formula as to what it would take for Jesus to fulfill them. Rather, it's organic. Rather, it's the whole of the Hebrew Bible in so many ways pointing to him, as it happened to Moses, as it happened to David, as it happened to Israel, so it happens to the Messiah. He fulfills Scripture, but not in this mathematical way that we often say.